can we just talk for a minute about that game last Sunday? Can we just talk for a minute? Can we just revel? Can we just revel in and indulge the majesty of that game last Sunday? Complete domination, fantastic goaltending, clutch goal scoring under enormous pressure, a much needed, well-deserved win over the hated rival. That was pure magnificence expressed in athletic form. It was a must-win game, and it delivered a must-win result under incredible pressure, and I am just stoked. I am just stoked about the result of that game on Sunday. And if you want to know why this team is number one now, go to YouTube and just look at the highlights of Arsenal 4, Tottenham 1. And now we're going to talk about pickleball. You thought I was talking about USA Canada, didn't you? That's just a little switcheroo I wanted to pull to bring some levity to that awful situation. But Arsenal's dominating win at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium was a thing of absolute footballing beauty. 4-1, still top of the table, and we will take it. And I'm going to talk about pickleball. Why am I going to talk about pickleball? Well, the truth is, kids, I've been struggling. I've been struggling of late with my passions. My passions traditionally being music, which is kind of DOA right now, and this podcast, which has been a struggle lately. I will confess to you, all right? I am open, I am honest, I am transparent on this program. But I'll tell you, I've struggled week in, week out to come up with episodes of this program. And I think it is just symptomatic of a larger malaise with which I've been struggling for quite a while now. I got to be honest with you about that. And I suppose I've talked about it before. I've struggled to get to the drum set. I don't have any gigs booked until the end of April. I've watched my musical career kind of crater very unexpectedly. It's just kind of dropped off the face of the earth. And my enthusiasm for my instrument, the drums, has kind of cratered with it. And it's interesting, you know, because there's been a lot of reporting over the past week or so about Ghost ending the Scaletta tour, which ended, I think, yesterday. And Tobias Forge saying he's taking an extended hiatus from Ghost. He's working on a couple other musical things, some film stuff, but Ghost is going on the shelf for an extended period of time, the limits of which have not yet been defined. And they were talking about going to Asia to tour, and they were talking about going to Australia to tour, and Tobias just said, no, we're not going to do it. A, it's too hard to take this production to those places. You know about my trip to Berlin last year where I went to see the band and I was talking to the truck drivers and there were like 24 trucks carrying this thing around. It's an enormous production, and Tobias said we just can't get it to some of these places and we don't want to half-ass it. We want to do the full show or no show at all. And then he revealed that he's been doing Ghost basically nonstop, album and touring cycle after album and touring cycle for 15 years. And he's burned out on it. It's just been his whole existence for 15 solid years of playing, recording, touring, blowing up. And the demands on an artist at every level are very, very difficult. When you're a new band starting out and you're touring, but you're playing like 200-seat clubs, 200-person clubs all around the world, that's an incredible pressure financially, right? It costs a lot of money to take a band into tour, and you're playing small rooms and you're probably not getting paid much. And that's a pressure. And then at the mid-level, it becomes this balancing act of how much production can we do? How much production can we afford and still keep ourselves above water financially? That becomes a pressure. And then as it gets bigger, now touring arenas with this huge production, there's an enormous cost involved. There's enormous pressure involved. There's enormous logistics that got probably a 50-person crew, a lot of people depending on you. It's a huge amount of pressure for different reasons at every level. And Tobias has been doing it for 15 solid years, and he's like, I just can't now. I just have to take a break from this. And I know it's been hugely successful, but he's got 2 kids at home who are at 17, and he's been doing this for 15 years, which means he's missed their lives. Fundamentally, on some level, this is a sacrifice you make as a touring musician. A lot of my friends have been that, and they will tell you, I missed my kids' lives, or big parts of it, because I was on the road doing my thing, and that creates problems. And Tobias is like, my kids are 17. For 15 years, I've been away on the road doing this ghost thing, and my family has allowed that, but it's time for me now to plug in and to go home and to be with them. And he said he's out of ideas, fundamentally. He talked about building this band and building this legacy like building a house. But he's like, I'm out of wood. I'm out of tiles. I got nothing left. And in order for this to continue at some point, he's got to go away and recharge. I am not comparing myself to Tobias Forge, but the timelines are fun. Because for 15 years or so, I've been pouring myself into music. Growing as a performing drummer, recording drummer, touring drummer for a while. And so I find myself suddenly on this extended hiatus, not of my own choosing, but it's like, okay, well, maybe I needed a break from it too, And I find that my enthusiasm for the instrument has flagged. And I find that my enthusiasm for being out there playing has a little bit flagged too. That's probably an opportunity thing. There just haven't been any gigs, and there aren't any gigs for a while yet. And so I've struggled to just play the drums for the sake of playing the drums. I've had a problem with that. I've had a problem with my passions. I've had a problem trying to keep coming up with episodes of this podcast. And I think that's probably just part of the creative life. Things ebb and flow. And so in contemplating this week's episode, what's been on my mind is, what do you care about? Where are your passions? The things that have been my passions traditionally, at least in the recent past, have really flagged. Music has flagged. This podcast has flagged. And I've had, we know, over the past couple of years, some personal life pressures with employment, with relationships. There's been stuff that's kind of encroached upon my enthusiasms, has brought stress and anxiety into my life. Those have been learning opportunities, and I've tried to take them as best I could. But they will suck away at your passions. If you are in an anxiety cycle, or if you're dealing with outside pressures, even internal pressures, that will suck away at your passions. It will suck away the energy you've got to put to things. And I think for me, it's kind of just a perfect storm right now of stuff that is pulling away a little bit at my energy, and there's not a lot happening, and the weather, and it's nothing to get into a crisis about. It's just something to be acknowledged. And so I'm sitting down here in preparing an episode, and I'm thinking over the last little while, what do I care about? The Canada-USA game, that hurt. That sucked. 2 days later, I don't care all that much. You know what I mean? Arsenal I care about. But it's like, what do I care about? Where is there a passion? Where is there something I can tap into that might provide a little bit of impetus for this week's episode? And what endures at this moment is pickleball. I did an episode a while back now, which was life lessons that I learned from pickleball. On that episode, I talked about patience, both on the court and off the court. On the court, the patience to wait for and choose the right ball to attack instead of trying to force a point that you usually lose. And that translated into life sometimes, right? You have to be a little bit patient about your opportunities sometimes. You have to be a little bit patient sometimes about your dreams manifesting. Sometimes there are things that you want so desperately in life that you have to wait for. And that is an exercise in patience. And it's really, really damn hard sometimes, kids, to wait on those things that you desire. To feel as though you're so close to those things and have to wait for life to unfold. That's a tough lesson to learn. But if you can master that, my goodness, what an asset to have. And then I talked about sometimes you just got to get the ball back over the net. And ain't that just like life too? Sometimes you just got to put one foot in front of the other. Sometimes you just got to remind yourself to keep breathing through a circumstance. You're not hitting a winner. You're not even hitting a shot that's going to be difficult for the other team to handle. You're just getting it back over the net and hanging in the point. Sometimes you got to hang into life when circumstances are difficult. And then I talked about being a goldfish, which I borrowed from Ted Lasso. Ted Lasso would say this, if you never watched that show, you should. He's a football coach, fish out of water story. And he says to his team, be a goldfish. Sometimes you make a mistake, and the problem is not the mistake. The problem is dwelling on the mistake and then absorbing and internalizing the mistake and making that part of your identity and then letting that mistake linger far beyond its shelf life and affect your confidence, affect your psyche, affect your attitude, affect your well-being. So it is in pickleball. Sometimes you just make a dumb shot or you make a good shot poorly. You put it in the net or you put it out by half an inch. Or somebody just hits a better shot back at you. Sometimes you make mistakes. Not sometimes, all the time, especially at my level in pickleball. You make mistakes all the damn time. And I have a real problem with internalizing those mistakes and then getting sucked down, right? Getting sucked down the drain and then making more mistakes and then trying to force bad shots to get out of that cycle and then making worse mistakes and then getting sucked down. Well, if you can be a goldfish, forget the mistake, move on to the next shot. That helps you mentally on the court, and that helps you in life. Sometimes you make a mistake. You've got to own it, take responsibility for it, apologize for it if necessary, and then move forward and try not to beat yourself up or make that mistake again. And that episode actually worked really well, and people seemed to like it. And so here I am contemplating this week's episode, struggling rather badly to come up with something to talk about. And I was like, well, what do you care about? Where does your passion still exist? And so I'm struggling with music, and I'm struggling with drums, and I'm struggling with the podcast. Pickleball. There is still heart in pickleball for me. I'm quite literally playing pickleball every day this week. And I can report to you with no little delight that a couple weeks ago, I won my first pickleball tournament. Did not do it alone. It was a mixed doubles tournament. And my partner A-Dubs, who is a dynamite player, carried us, but we won. Won a tournament, which is a pretty cool feeling, right? So there's still a lot of energy in pickleball. So I thought, well, what else can we learn? And what else can we learn from pickleball that is applicable, if you like, to life these days? Because I think a lot of us need a little boost, need a little help. The world is friggin' weird. And then it can be very dark if you look in certain places. And it's hard not to see the darkness because it's friggin' everywhere. And it's in our faces all the time on social media and the news. And Canada loses both gold medal games and the Jays lose the damn World Series. And it's like, there's a lot of reasons to be upset. There's a lot of things to feel darkness about. And the weather has been absolutely awful all winter, and so it remains. And so maybe we need a pick-me-up, and maybe we need a little bit of fun, and that is pickleball for me most of the time. Not always, because I do take pickleball seriously, and it does tend to bring me down if I'm not playing well. But that is also a crucible. Even pickleball can be a crucible. Even pickleball is a venue wherein you can work on your stuff, right? I start playing poorly at pickleball, becomes an ego thing. I don't want people to think I'm not very good at pickleball. And so I get into an ego thing about it. Well, that's stupid. And that's childish and immature, but that's part of my crucible. That's part of me developing as an adult human being, is to put that ego aside and just be grateful that I can play pickleball at all, and be grateful that physically I can, be grateful that I have the opportunity to. I don't think there's a lot of pickleball being played in Gaza right now, for example, or perhaps in Ukraine. How lucky are we to even have the opportunity? And then the biggest piece of all, which is just the people that I play pickleball with, who have become such a huge part of my life, and that community that has really rescued me from a marriage breakdown and a changing life and all of this stuff. And it's like you have to remember your gratitudes. But what are the practical things? What more practical things have I learned from pickleball that I can share with you right now? Well, I've got a few. And one of the things that I'm noticing lately is that things evolve. This is what I'm noticing, right? Nothing stays the same. And I'm noticing in my own game lately, as I'm trying to get to another level as a player, I'm kind of a mid-level player right now. I'm trying to move into being an advanced player. I play against some advanced players, and they beat me because they've got stuff that I don't have. That's shots, that's philosophy, that's strategy. And I'm realizing as I try to improve at pickleball that things evolve. All right? If you are a musician, maybe your skill set evolves. Maybe your approach to your instrument has to evolve if you're going to keep growing at it. And I'm finding this now. I got by in pickleball on athleticism and reach for the most part. I had a couple of shots that I could consistently hit, but as you begin to play against better players, you realize that sheer arm span and athleticism won't do it. And that the shots that worked against players at your level don't work all the time against players at a higher level. And I've realized that I have to evolve as a player. And so now I am working very diligently at changing my entire approach to the game, which is no longer about just hitting really hard or trying to get overheads, because against really good players, you don't get a lot of those. It's about playing the smart shot. It's about hitting a drop into the middle instead of trying to go for a big winner. It's about not trying to pick that corner that you get 1 out of 10 times, but actually hitting a strategically smart shot, setting up a shot, trying to force the opponents to hit bad shots. This is strategy. This is advanced and evolving strategy where you have to realize that being what they call a banger, which is just hitting the ball hard all of the time, only works up to a certain point. And then you begin to play against more advanced players who have the hand speed and the subtlety where you bang the ball at them and they just tap it down at your feet and you're toast. Or they hit a drop, or they hit it back to you in such a way that you just can't handle it. Players at your level don't do that, so you win. Players at a higher level do that, and they win. It's like if you don't evolve your game to start playing more strategically, to start playing less egoically, to start playing high percentage shots instead of glory shots, still a struggle at times. But if you don't do that, you're not going to evolve as a player, and you're going to get beat by better players than you. And so I'm working very diligently at changing my approach to the game, to hit higher percentages, to play strategically smarter, to take some speed off the ball and try to place it better. I'm evolving into a better pickleball player. And there's a messy period of time where you're not good at those things. If I was good at them, I'd have been doing them before. I'm not great at third shot drops, right? I'm not great at choosing the safe option instead of the glory option. And so there's this murky kind of scuffed up period of time where you're evolving out of one style of play into a new one where you're not very good. And that's where I'm at right now. Getting better at some of these shots. I'm getting better at thinking smarter. And I'm in a gray zone though. So I lose sometimes when I feel like maybe I shouldn't because I'm not going for that big banger shot that might work. I'm trying to drill into my head, playing the softer shot, playing the smarter shot, placing a lighter shot, and I'm not great at it. So I'm losing sometimes, and that becomes frustrating, and then that becomes the mental game again. But you have to see the long term, right? Working through this evolution as a player, eventually I'm going to get so that I can hit those shots reliably, and that my my inclination, my second nature becomes to hit that safe shot, knowing that the shot after it, or being patient with my dink battles at the net. There's a tendency among intermediate players to not be patient. I talked about dink battles before, and I know that's funny and silly, and I probably have to put an R rating on this episode. Dinks are just little shots at the net, okay? Little shots over the net back and forth. And advanced pickleball tends to get into the dinking zone because people are so good that you can't just blow the ball past them. It turns into this little strategic chess match at the net where you're just hitting little shots back and forth. And lesser players like me, less experienced, less evolved players like me, tend to try to force a winner. Right, a ball comes over and you try to hit it hard at the other team and you just put it in the net because it's not the right shot to attack. Advanced players can sit there in a dink rally for 20 shots, very comfortably waiting for the one to attack. That patience is the mark of an advanced, experienced player. Well, I don't hit those dinks very well because I never had the patience to practice them, right? I'm learning slowly but surely to stay in those dink rallies rather than try to force a winner, and I'm winning more of them. This is an example, and it applies outside of life, right? Sometimes in your relationships, for example, you need to evolve, all right? The way things were at a certain point in how you relate to your partner changes because your partner changes or the pressures of life change, the circumstances of life change, and it can't be the way it was before, and people sometimes don't want to evolve. Sometimes people don't want to grow with their partners, and this is about growth. This is about growth as a pickleball player in the sense of growing, evolving to be a better, more rounded, smarter player. And if you get stuck in your ways, you begin to lose. And so it can be in your relationships. You don't grow together as a couple. Suddenly you don't relate anymore. Right? The way life used to be, the way life used to work doesn't work anymore. And if you're not willing to keep improving yourself as a person, keep improving yourself as a partner, especially if your partner is glowing up, they'll leave you behind, right? And this is an important lesson about continuously improving, particularly in those areas that you're passionate about. That can be music as well. I struggle with that right now because it's like I'm a little bit not exactly set in my ways as a player. I just kind of know what my wheelhouse is. And the game is, how do you evolve? But it doesn't necessarily mean adding a whole bunch of new stuff to your palette. It might mean getting better and more focused at the stuff that you already do. And that's kind of what I'm working on right now. And it leads me to the kind of second lesson that I've picked up recently from pickleball, which is less is more. Less can be more, right? On the pickleball court, the simple shot is often the right one, right? And you try to have all of this creative imagination. And then if you're a lesser player like me, less experienced player, you're trying to go for lines and you're trying to go for corners. And there's an important idiom, there's an important adage to remember, especially when you're just getting started in a match or in a tournament. And it's this shrink the court mentality. Shrink the court. What does that mean? Well, the court is its own dimensions and it has outlines. And the temptation is to go for those lines. And most of the time you miss them. It's not a smart shot to go for lines usually. But if you can shrink the court, that is mentally bring those lines in about a foot and aim for that spot, right? Then you have much more margin of error, much more room to miss. And you don't put so many shots out, which is an easy point for the other side. Shrinking the court is an example of less is more. Go for less, but hit it more consistently, right? And then there's this idea, there's this temptation amongst players at my level to go for winners when the smart play is to just get the ball back over the net in a useful place and get yourself to the line and get prepared for an easier put away or force your opponent into pressure that makes them hit a bad shot, hit it out, hit it in the net, instead of going for a winner. I think that's a tennis mentality, and I have a tennis background. Pickleball is not that. It's a much more strategic, cagey game in that way. And less is more, right? You don't need that crazy slice backhand that you're going to try to hit the tee line with. Great shot if you can hit it. 1 out of 10, you can. Better to just put it back over deep. Get yourself in position at the kitchen line, right? Don't worry about having 8 different really elaborate serves you can do. Less is more. A deep topspin serve does the job, right? It's like not everything has to be a winner. I have to remind myself of this all the time because it's fun to go for glory shots. Glory shots are awesome when you hit them, but usually you don't. And then you say, oh, that was close. That would have been great. Yeah, it would have. Wasn't. Whereas if you had just put that shot to somebody's feet, you might have got yourself a pop-up and an easy winner. Or less is more in terms of power. This is a really important lesson to learn. Stop trying to hit the ball so hard. I have done lessons with a couple of different experienced teachers. Both of them are like 70%. Sometimes 60%. Hit that forehand drive with 60% of your power and put it in. And that's way more effective than blasting it with everything you got and hitting it into the net. Less is more, less power. Less trying to paint lines, less trying to be really tricky about things, more fundamentals. And that's an approach to music that I'm dealing with right now. It's like, I don't necessarily need to add a whole bunch of elaborate or exotic stuff or intricate stuff. I need to focus in on a few things, like continuing to work on my time, continuing to work on my feel, continuing to learn the songs that I know I'm going to be required to play. Shrinking the chord in that sense is getting rid of what is unnecessary, not needed. Getting rid of the extraneous stuff, the superfluous stuff. Focusing in on 2, 3, 4, 5 things that really matter that you can improve. That can be in your relationships too. Where are you falling out? What are you fighting about? Where are you not delivering? Where are you not expressing your own needs? You don't have to necessarily get into doing more and more and more and more, but getting into doing less stuff, but more of the effective stuff that your partner needs, listening, paying attention, trying to be a partner. I don't know why I'm focusing on relationships, maybe because I've lost one and I'm still doing the forensic audit of it. It can be the same at work, right? You focus so hard on trying to be busy all the time, doing a lot of extraneous stuff that doesn't actually amount to anything, instead of focusing in on the 2 or 3 strategies that actually work in whatever it is that you're doing. We have this tendency to confuse busyness with effectiveness, complication with working hard. I don't think it is that. I think less is more. I think less is more on the pickleball court, where instead of trying to learn all of these intricate shots and slices and whatever, you just focus in on drops, drives, and dinks, the fundamentals. And you get a lot further by just focusing in on those things instead of adding all this other tricky stuff that just gets in the way and isn't usually effective. Same in your relationships, same in your work life, same in music. Focus in on the 3 or 4 fundamentals that actually work and get rid of all the other stuff that just takes up a lot of your time and energy and mental clarity. That's been a hugely important lesson for me. I don't need, at least at my level, all of this extra stuff. What I need is to be able to hit a decent deep serve, a decent deep return, a decent dink, a decent drop shot, a decent drive. That's like 5 things. And if you can focus in on and really improve those things, then they will carry your game. Same as a guitar player, same as a drummer, same as a writer. Focusing in on those fundamentals, identifying what they are, and less is more. Focusing on fewer things, but more effective things will result in better results. It will produce more. In pickleball terms, more points won, more matches won, more tournaments won, more frigging fun. But here's the thing, and it's the 3rd lesson I've picked up recently from pickleball, is that you have to practice. Not everybody wants to drill pickleball. Not everybody wants to get a court for an hour or 2 hours and just sit there For 20 minutes doing drops, for 20 minutes doing drives, for 20 minutes doing serves. Not everybody wants to do that, but at a certain point, if you want to improve as a player, you must do those things. You can't get better at those things just playing live. Same with your band. You got to practice, kids. You can't get to the level you want to get to in terms of your live show stage production without practicing. And not everybody wants to practice. Not everybody wants to rehearse, and that bothers me. I've played in and worked with bands that don't really want to rehearse. It's like, oh, we got a show coming up. Let's do one and we'll run through the set and that's it. And it's like, well, okay, but are we going to be as good as we can be? Are we serious about this or not? Because if we are, we should be rehearsing and we should be getting better. And the only way to do that is to be in the woodshed doing it. As a drummer, if I want to get better at time, then I've got to practice time. And that's not super fun, but okay. Put your metronome at 115 BPMs and play time, and then play triplets, and then play 16th notes, and learn to get those in time together. It's not exotic. It's not even fun usually, but these are the things that you got to do. If you seriously want to improve, you've got to practice. If you want to improve as a partner, you've got to practice listening. You've got to put effort into those fundamentals. You've got to practice whatever it is you need to practice in your particular situation. So it is at work. You've got to keep learning. You've got to keep working on things. As a writer, you've got to sit down and sometimes write stuff that's no good. But the exercise is what improves your writing. And I'm learning that with pickleball. I'm now doing a lot more drill sessions than I used to do. And we'll be doing more because I'm beginning to play against players who are better than me. And they're better than me because they have those fundamental shots at a level that I don't have. And they have that fundamental strategy at levels that I don't have. And one of the joys of pickleball for me is improving at it. You're really, with anything, you improve very quickly at anything until you don't, right? 20 years ago, I was an avid golfer. And when I started playing, I was terrible. And so it was easy to improve because I was starting at terrible. I was starting at nothing. So any practice would be an improvement. And then very quickly, I got up so that I'm not a good golfer, but I was okay. I shaved a lot of strokes off of my traditional score just by going to the range a couple times a week because I was so bad that getting up to mediocre didn't take much time. But then after that, it's very incremental, right? Like it really takes work to get better after that. Same at the gym. People make tremendous gains at the gym in the first 3 or 4 months because you're starting at zero. You're starting at out of shape. And then your body snaps very quickly. You start to see some gains. You start to see some growth. And that's very exciting. And you can ride that energy for a long time. But then you do hit a wall. You hit a point where your body is where it wants to be. And then to push it beyond that takes work, right? It takes reps. You got to do the reps in the gym. You got to do the reps as a writer sitting in front of your laptop. You got to do the reps as a drummer trying to improve your time or your hand speed or your foot speed or your ability to play a certain groove. You've got to put the time in. So it is on pickleball. If I want to stop hitting my drops into the net, and I do, I've got to practice drops. I've got to keep just sitting there practicing drops. I've got to start practicing more drives. I've got to start getting into and just doing dinks for 20 minutes, 30 minutes. And it's like, it's an indication of how badly you want something. It's an indication of how passionate you are about something when you're willing to put in that time, when you're willing to put in that effort. So it is at work. So it is at relationships. And if you're finding yourself at work not wanting to put in those reps, that's a pretty big clue, Junior. You have to look at that. Why do I not want to improve at this job? Why do I not want to improve at this career? Why do I not want to learn more? Why do I not want to dive into processes that make things better? In your relationships, why do I not want to make the effort anymore? Why do I not want to make the effort for this person? Am I not getting it back? Is it not worth it to me? What is it? I don't have the answer to that, but it's worth asking yourself if you feel as though you're stuck in a rut, if you feel as though the relationship is cooling off, where are you not putting in the reps? Or where is your partner not putting in the reps? And what do you do collectively about that? Or do you want to? Or is it time to look at whether this thing is done? I don't know. Like, I've had to look at music recently and be like, is this thing done? My enthusiasm for practicing is not there. There are no gigs booked, really. It's like, is it done for me? And then you've got to contemplate that. Well, do I want this anymore? Well, yeah, I do. And so you better find your way into the enthusiasm again. You look at your relationships. Am I done here? And maybe you are. And if you are done here, then you've got to take a pretty good hard look at how you proceed from that spot. Because what are you wasting of your life? But if you're not done, then you've got to take a look at, well, how do I plug back in here? How do I reconnect with this person? If that person's willing to, what sort of reps do I have to put in? I don't know what the reps are in your relationships. I don't know what the reps are in your job. I don't know what the reps are in your hobbies, but you have to, at a certain point, if you want to improve, be willing to put in those reps. And I'm reaching a point now with pickleball where I'm beginning to do more drill sessions. I'm beginning to do more lessons. I'm beginning to apply myself to learning. And there's something in it for me. That's why I'm talking about pickleball. It's like, well, this is where passion seems to endure. This is where interest seems to endure. Whether that's simply the art of the game or feeling as though I'm improving at something, right? And that's an important thing too. For me, it's like if things don't grow, I lose interest in them. I think that's the danger with music right now. It's not hard to look around and see that there are no gigs and feel as though it's just not growing anymore. And I lose enthusiasm for that. And I feel as though my playing is not really improving because I'm not practicing. And so this momentum can grind to a halt. The podcast is a similar struggle. I mean, I continue to put out episodes, but I'm not seeing growth. And there's a problem with me somewhere with that, but I'm not seeing growth. And it's like, it's hard to continue when you're not seeing growth. Pickleball, I'm seeing growth because I'm still at that stage where I'm bad enough that I can improve pretty rapidly still. Going to hit a wall, beginning to hit it probably now. And that's the time where it's like, okay, do I push through and do the things it takes? Or do I accept this as it is or let it go? Can't answer that for you. Can't answer it for me. What I do know is that I feel like drilling. I'm playing pickleball every day this week. And some of those sessions are drill sessions because I want to improve. I feel some energy in that. And that's tied to the game. It's tied to the community. It's tied very much to the people who are in my life because of pickleball. And I want those people in my life, and I want to grow with them. I want to evolve with them as players, as people. And so I'm talking about it because that's where the passion is, right? I'm talking about it because there's something that I think can be delivered from how I feel about pickleball right now. And so I'm giving it to you, kids. The first 3 lessons were about patience, sometimes just hanging in and hoping that things will get better, and being a goldfish, letting go of your mistakes, owning them and letting them go. And now I'm talking about evolution, growing as a person, growing as a partner, growing as an employee, growing as a musician, growing as whatever it is you're trying to be. I'm using it in the context of pickleball, right? You have to keep growing. You have to keep evolving. It's ennui, it's inertia. The world is evolving with or without you. You need to evolve as a person to keep being engaged, right? One of the ways that you lose your happiness is that you just get stuck in the same place. Well, a commitment to evolving as whatever it is you are or are doing is an important step towards happiness. Less is more. Sometimes we complicate things unnecessarily. We confuse complication with productivity. It's not always the case. So streamline, all right? Get down to the essence. Jeff Thompson talks about finding the essence of a thing. He uses the illustration of punching because that's his background, right? He focused his life on pure function in a punch. The shortest, fastest, sharpest punch. No big roundhouses, just a straight, short punch. Complete focused energy being the most effective. And so in pickleball, getting rid of the superfluous stuff in music, getting rid of the stuff that doesn't matter, that doesn't work, focusing in on those fundamentals that do and growing through those. And finally, being willing to practice. Whatever it is, if you want to improve as a partner, as a musician, as a player of anything, you must at some point begin to practice the skills required. And all of those things are just lessons that pickleball continues to give to me. And I'm grateful for them. I've needed them. And this episode has already gone longer than I intended it to, but I want to really quick talk about some music I heard this week that I really like. There's this band based out of Berlin, Germany, and how prominent has Berlin been in my episodes lately? Band based out of Berlin called Oktobernacht. Oktobernatt, which, if I'm translating correctly, means October night. And pretty good name for that band, because when I think of October nights, Halloween, for example, I think about a certain moodiness, a certain darkness, a certain vibe. And all of that appears in the new song by Oktobernacht called Rasa, R-A-S-A. And I don't know what the translation is of that. The band describes itself as dream rock, and I think that fits too. It's just really dark, moody, spacey, a little bit shoegazy, and we know how big I'm becoming on shoegaze music. But I'll give you the description of the band as provided by the band. Oktobernacht, Berlin 6-piece Oktobernacht combines spacious guitars, powerful vocals, and blooming low end, which I think is a great way to put it, with heartfelt lyrical messaging into a unique non-symphonic orchestra. Okay. Originating from Sweden, Iceland, Germany, and Finland, the group of friends met in the vibrant music scene of Berlin in 2024 when Gabrielle Janssen Schwedberg, the vocalist, and she is fantastic, Vinir Widersen, Albin König, discovered their love of writing songs together. They added Ole von Gerl on drums, that's a great rock and roll name, Myra Amneskog on keyboard, and Una Katuri on guitar. With their vision for a musical project, they started working on new material, which later developed into a band, Oktobernacht completing the lineup. Moody, spacey rock and roll. This song starts with just a really haunting, clean electric guitar lead. Very, very ethereal. Dream rock is a really good way to describe this. And then this female vocal comes in, and then it kind of kicks in bass, guitar, drums, but it's like a halftime thing. Slow, dirgy, really, really dark. And I love that. I love that. And they're coming into the chorus, and I'm thinking to myself, because they're playing this in halftime, I'm thinking, I really hope at a certain point that this goes straight time. Like, what a pick-me-up could happen if they kicked it up a notch tempo-wise. They play, and it's really swirly. It's really, really good. I don't talk about music apart from the AI thing. I don't talk about music on this program that I don't really, really like. And I listen to a ton of music that I think is okay or pretty good or don't like at all. And it's not podcast worthy. This song, Rasa, R-A-S-A by Oktobernacht, is. There's a certain point where they come to this moment and then they just drop out. And it's just guitar again and just the vocal. And there's kind of a little bridge there that's really quiet and moody. And then it just explodes. It does exactly what I wanted. It goes to straight time. And it's a really effective thing when a song is slow and then it picks up into that tempo. Like the energy and emotional surge that accompanies a move like that, well executed, you really feel that. And then the band is just rocking at that point. And they call it dream rock. You might call it indie rock or alt rock. It's definitely that. Fantastic vocalist. This girl is just she can sing gentle. And not everybody can do this, right? Some people can belt, but they can't sing quietly. And then some people can sing quietly, but they can't really belt. this girl, Gabrielle, has both sides, right? So most of the song, she's singing this very wispy, ethereal kind of voice, very evocative. And then towards the end, she's just belting. And it's like, oh yeah, like not everybody can do that, you know? She's great. This band is great. Octobernaut from Berlin. And brand new as far as I can tell. I think they have 2 songs out. Really, really like this one. So if you are into some of that shoegaze stuff that I've talked about in the past, if you like moody alt rock, if you like moody indie rock, but really works on emotional levels. This song is about a breakup. I don't really get a lot of the lyrics, but one of the repeated refrains is, I was never my own. She keeps singing, I was never my own, I was never my own. And have you felt like that in a relationship, kids? Have you felt in a relationship like you're just not your own? Like you're not allowed to be who you are? Like the demands of your partner, the oppression perhaps of your partner makes it so you can't be who you are, or you get put down or in trouble for being who you are, for doing the things you enjoy. You feel like you have to answer all the time for just living your frigging life because of a partner who does not appreciate or value you, because of a partner who treats you like some sort of servant, a partner who does not give you the respect and value that you so deserve. And you sit there at night after another fight, or even worse, after another day of silence, and you think, I was never my own. In this relationship, I'm just not my own. I'm not allowed to be me. My partner doesn't value me as me. My partner wants me to change to be what he or she wants. And my partner wants me to change who I am. My partner wants me to change my appearance. My partner does not value me for the wonder that I am. And how long are you going to sit there in that relationship? Always becomes the question. This goes back to pickleball too, right? When are you going to evolve from that? When are you going to leave behind the partners who refuse to evolve with you? And so that's what they're singing about in this song, Rasa. I was never my own. And that hits home, I think, for a lot of people. And if that's you, where you're in a relationship where you're not your own and you're not allowed to be yourself and you are not celebrated for the wonder that you are, might want to think about changing that. But if you just want to hear a really great song by a new band you probably have never heard of, Octobernaut, Rasa, I am going to put that on the Referenced on the Podcast 2026 playlist, which now exists on Spotify. Go and subscribe to it. And I can't play the music on this show, but I can put it on the Spotify playlist. You can go hear everything we're talking about here. There's a bunch of songs on there now, owing to last week's Sad Songs episode. Spotify, Semi-Eloquent with John Huff, Referenced on the Podcast, Referenced on the Pod 2026 playlist. I will put this Octobernaut song there. And it's just really great. And it's exciting for me to see young bands still coming out, cranking out real music, doing it extremely well. This episode is far longer than I thought it was going to be. I hope you hung with me till the end. And I believe Octobernaut is worth it if you did. Oktobernatt. There is an official video on YouTube, which is very, very cool. Thank you ever so much for listening to the show, man. I mean, I talked about the fact that the podcast isn't growing, and fundamentally it isn't, at least not in the ways I want it to. But a lot of you have been with me for a long time. A lot of you have been with me for years, and you have listened, and you have supported, and you have encouraged, and that is not lost on me. I do appreciate that. Having said it, would appreciate a few more ratings and reviews on Apple, would appreciate some ratings on Spotify. If you wouldn't mind, kids, takes 2 seconds to go give me 5 stars, and it does in some way help the show get noticed. I struggle with this lately because I just feel it not growing. And again, as I said, things that don't grow, I struggle with. But I would like it to. And I'm fighting against big corporate podcasts that have advertising budgets and celebrity name recognition, and it's very, very difficult. But I think we have something here that's worth continuing. I think we have a little community here that's worth participating in. And it doesn't exist without all of you who have hung with me. So thank you ever so much. go this week and consider your passions. Consider whether you need to evolve them. Consider whether you need to simplify them. Consider whether you need to commit yourself to a little bit of practice. As a musician, as a hobbyist, as a partner, as an employee, as a person, what do you need to practice this week? And is your heart in it? Can't answer that for you, can only try to answer it for me, and I will attempt to do so. Until next week, do take care, do enjoy yourselves, and do go listen to Rasa by Octobernaut. Cheers, kids.